Hello, everybody. Welcome to Teatime Talks. I'm Katie with Katiehossyoga.
And I'm Perri with Wellness Springs.
Today, we are discussing our third agreement of Don Miguel Ruiz's The Four Agreements. Our agreement today is assume nothing. Don't make assumptions. So they're all important, they're all wonderful, but definitely one that I think can be really effective in life that we all do consistently.
So, I think this is one of the more difficult ones for me and for many. And we talk all the time about being really present. And I think part of not making assumptions, like when you make assumptions, you're somehow in the future, you're in the past, your mind goes to conclusions that may or may not exist. So this one to me says, be present, communicate.
Oh, communicate.
Right,
I think that's the biggest part.
Yeah.
Ask for clarification. And it's so cool how it kind of all trickles down, right? The first agreement is be impeccable with your word. And we talked about how it starts with the thoughts, but also to speak your truth. And then it ties into don't make assumptions, speak your truth. And then he talks a lot about don't gossip. And I feel like when you hear that initially, you're like, well, I'm not a gossiper. I don't like call my girlfriend up and say, oh my goodness, this, that, and the other thing. But I do turn to my friends when I'm having a complication with somebody else. Yeah. And I might talk to my sister or talk to my best friend about what's going on with my partner rather than address the situation with my partner. Yeah. If I had just said, hey, sweetheart, this thing you do kind of bothers me. Instead, I go to my sister, I go to my mom, I go to whoever to like bounce ideas off of. And then you create a whole narrative and then they become stress. And then it's when you could have just had a conversation and nipped it in the bud right from the anxiety building point of making an assumption in your head.
That's exactly true. Or to when something occurs, to maybe communicate directly to that person. I agree with that. And to just say, this happened. What was your intention? Or when you said this, what exactly did you mean? Did you say this? Sometimes people will say something that someone else said, and you think that it's true, and it's not exactly the truth. Yeah, it definitely makes for a very calm, happy life. To just go directly to the source and to ask questions that are kind of positive questions. Definitely not accusing,
right?
But I'm just really curious.
And a beautiful mindset that you can switch is rather than thinking of the worst possible outcome, think of the best possible outcome, right? Instead of thinking and assuming you know how that person's going to respond to your conversation. Maybe they do respond the same way every single time. And maybe you've understood that in your heart, but rather than assuming that this time is going to be the same, wish for the possible best outcome.
That's true. We have we all have a storyline that we take in all of our lives.
Right.
And it's really easy to carry that storyline into every relationship that we have over decades. And to just notice that if you're seeing the same thing, if you're having the same experiences with people in your life, that it might be your story. And to really begin as you work on yourself in practice to maybe change your story and see what shifts around you.
It's so powerful.
Sometimes, Sandy, if you're watching, Sandy Wells is the person who's taught yoga here for many, many years. And she said, she says that when you shift in awareness within yourself and you create space within you, what happens around you without even having that conversation, it changes. And that's just been my experience so many times.
And it's a beautiful shift, but it takes that awareness. It takes that practice.
It takes the pause. Yeah, it takes the pause to step back and take that pause. And to just know, the past doesn't equal the future. What happened, whatever, 10 or 20 years ago, or what happened a month ago, doesn't necessarily mean that it has to happen that way again. We're all evolving. We have to allow ourselves and the people around us that freedom to be evolving and changing in a positive way.
I love that. I couldn't agree more. And when we take the time to practice, to pause, to reevaluate, to take the time to listen to this conversation, to practice yoga, to breathe, right? Then you can make those shifts. Otherwise, another book Don Miguel written was The Mastery of Love. We've mastered these reactions. We live in the reality of doing things over and over again because we're used to it, even if the result isn't a positive one, right? We might keep doing things the same way over and over again, reacting in anger because this is how we've mastered it. But when you take the pause and practice and apply these new methods, then you can actually stop suffering so much.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
That's been my biggest takeaway this week, is just to live without suffering. And a lot of our suffering is created by our own narrative.
And I always like to think about what I want, not what I don't want. So I would think about living with more joy as opposed to living without suffering. Do you know what I mean? It's the same thing. It's the same. Yes. It's the same coin. It's just the other end of the coin.
It is the opposite, right? To not suffer is to be in joy, right? To live in joy. I love that play on words, like enjoy and enjoy. To live is to be joyful, right? We should live to be joyful. So enjoy life while you enjoy life. Yeah. So cool. Well, everyone, I hope that this week you can carry along this affirmation, assume nothing, carry that with you, and hopefully it can help you suffer a little less, enjoy life a little more.
I would venture to say that all of us, and whenever we have a tea time talk, I always have experiences, like usually that day, like a big test, like that day. Right away. I bet all of us, all of you, have many experiences where it's so easy, where something comes up and you could assume. And we have the opportunity to maybe step back, take a pause, communicate, and have a different experience.
I love it.
Yeah.
Great. So let's jump into our meditation. We do have tea today, but it's a little hot. So cheers, everyone. We'll enjoy it after our meditation, maybe. All right. Thank you. Timing. So everybody take a few moments, find a comfortable seat. Allow your shoulders to stack over your hips. Closing the eyes. Taking a few slow breaths in and out. For the next few moments, your only job is to listen to my voice. Just breathe, just be. Letting out an audible sigh. As you breathe in comfort and breathe out self-doubt. Listening to the sound of my voice without any effort at all. Listening to any sounds in the room around you. Sounds in the building or sounds outside. The sounds of the mysterious thing called life, moving all around us, that we try so desperately to understand and categorize. And that's okay, because maybe part of that is what makes us human anyway. Now, allow yourself every exhale to simply flow or melt away. And as you do, you can begin to consider already this idea of letting go of assumptions. Maybe at first, it takes just becoming aware of when you're doing that. Even if it's after the moment, that's okay. You'll get better and better each and every day, letting go of assumptions, noticing when you make one, noticing the times that maybe you're afraid for some reason to ask for clarification. Drifting a little deeper now, I'd like you to consider in your mind a child watching an ant walk across the sidewalk. A little child is stooped down and watches the ant walk out of the grass and walk across the sidewalk. They have that look of amazement, especially if the ant is carrying something, dragging it alone, so tiny, yet so powerful and strong. In your own mind, you probably have a time when a sunrise or a sunset seemed like the most amazing thing because you were there, the present moment. There was no stress, cares, or worries in that moment, and there was nothing to assume. That was just you experiencing the beauty of life as it was, waking up or preparing for rest. Imagine yourself going on about your day into the week, practicing no longer making assumptions. When in doubt, asking for clarification, noticing when you assume, and stopping, taking a deep breath, turning around, and taking care of that. And as you take it deeper, you begin to uncover, discover, and resolve so many issues gracefully, with clarity, feeling that grace, that clarity within you now, like a beautiful little light that glows and grows within you. And every time you're brave and ask for clarification, every time you have the courage to satisfy your assumptions, this beautiful light grows and glows a little more brightly within you. And just because life feels easier, freer, and more present focused, you begin to have those moments of innocence returned to you, to have a beginner's mind that you bring more and more to all that you do. And all you do belongs to you to choose. And you can choose to practice your ability to enter this awareness more and more each and every day. In so many ways, letting go of any mistakes in the past, letting go now of old guilt and shame. Because as you look back on the past, you can see yourself getting better and better. And so that proves to you already in your own experience that mistakes are merely opportunities to grow. So letting go of the guilt and shame in the past, just breathe and be in that beginner's state of mind where awareness, presence, focus, like you find yourself in that flow. I know you can do this. No, you can do this. Letting go of assumptions, not taking things personally, and honoring your word, especially to you. And then, a moment from now, it's going to be time to come to a fully state of awareness. Taking a big breath in, breathing out. Thank you so much for joining me. And we look forward to seeing you next week for agreement number 4. Namaste.